Welcome to Creating Accessible PowerPoint Documents. This webinar is hosted by NTTAC and OJJDP. I'm Donna Patrick, a Section 5 OIT specialist, and today I'm here to talk about creating accessible PowerPoint documents. Let's first talk about source files. Accessibility begins with accessible source files. For instance, files created in Word or PowerPoint. Common source files are Word documents and PowerPoint presentations. PDF files are never created as PDF files. You need some sort of source file, such as a Word or PowerPoint, and convert it to a PDF file. Other possible sources are Excel, InDesign, and HTML, but this training does not cover those source files. It is important to fix any potential accessibility issues in the source file before it is converted to a PDF file. Today we will be concentrating on PowerPoint files. These issues must be fixed in PowerPoint files. Color contrast is easy to fix in PowerPoint, but difficult or even impossible to fix in a PDF file. Someone with low vision might not be able to discern the foreground from the background. Someone who is colorblind might have difficulty with some color combinations. Make sure that if you use color to convey information, for instance in graphs, charts, or text, that information is also provided in another way. This is not something easily fixed in a PDF file. Let's talk about links. Your links must describe their purpose, usually the destination where the link will take you. It is best to use plain language text over a web address. But if you must use a web address, make sure surrounding context describes that purpose. Let's talk about what must be fixed in PowerPoint files in more detail now. We'll start with contrast. It's important to have good background to foreground contrast for people who have low vision or who are colorblind. While it is possible to change colors in a PDF file, it is much easier to fix in a PowerPoint file. Changing color in a PDF file can create other problems. The WCAG 2.0 specifies a contrast ratio of 4.5 to 1 for normal text, which means that the foreground color must be at least 4.5 times brighter or darker than the background color. Larger text can have a slightly lesser contrast ratio. You should use the color contrast checker tool to calculate the contrast ratio of the foreground and background colors. All color contrast tools work on the same principle, but some use different codes for colors. Some can be downloaded, some are used online, and some are browser extensions. It's relatively easy to determine the color contrast of text to background by using an online or downloadable tool. See the WebEx blog page to view a list of some color contrast tools. Here are examples of poor color contrast and good color contrast. It will be more difficult for someone with low vision to see the example on the left and easier to see the examples on the right. Light blue on white is harder to read than a darker blue. Green and white combination is often problematic, but you can use a darker green and pass the color contrast requirement. Any shade of yellow and white will fail for color contrast, so use a different color instead, such as brown. Now, how do you fix contrast issues with PowerPoint? In this presentation, the main heading has a contrast ratio of 2.1 to 1, which fails the requirement of 4.5 to 1 for normal text. This particular heading is 36 point, which makes it a large text, and the requirement for color contrast for large text, at least 18 point or 14 point bold, is 3 to 1. So the contrast ratio fails for large text in this case. Changing text styles in PowerPoint is different than in Word. Select the View tab and then select Slide Master in the Master View section of the View tab. The Slide Master for the slide layout you're editing will open. Right-click anywhere in the phrase, click to edit Master Title Slide. Select the font color to open a window where you can either select a new color or choose more colors to adjust the hue. If you choose to select a color not on the color palette and choose more colors, another dialog box will open. Select the Custom tab and use the slider to change the hue of the current color so the new color passes the contrast ratio requirement of 3 to 1 because this is large text. You can use the color contrast tool right on the dialog box. Then select OK when you are satisfied with the contrast ratio. The text should now pass the guideline. Continue fixing any other contrast ratio failures in your file. Now let's switch to talking about using color in PowerPoint files. It's perfectly fine to use colors in PowerPoint files, but color should never be used as the only means to convey information. People who have difficulty distinguishing colors might have trouble telling certain colors apart. Someone who cannot distinguish colors might have trouble telling the quarters apart on this pie chart. This can be fixed by including the data on the chart or using patterns for the different sections of the pie chart. Here are some examples of how color might be used to convey information in a PowerPoint file. The correct answers should not be indicated by color alone, as in the case on the left of the slide. Both correct and incorrect are identified by circles, the only difference of which are the colors that fill the circles. In the example on the right, symbols are used. A green check mark means the answer is correct, and a red X means the answer is incorrect. Here is another example of using color to convey information. In the example on the left, the required readings are only identified by the color red, whereas on the right, an asterisk has been added to identify required chapters. Asterisks are often used when indicating required form fields. Someone who cannot distinguish colors can see that chapters 2, 4, 5, and 6 are required because they also include asterisks. Back to the pie chart example from earlier. The chart on the left only uses color to indicate the amount of sales during each quarter, whereas the chart on the right includes the quarters and percentage of sales during each quarter. Imagine if the chart on the left were printed in grayscale. You'd have trouble figuring out which quarter was which. The chart on the right would be no problem if the chart were printed in grayscale. Another example of using color alone to convey information is when links are presented in text without being underlined or have some other non-color designator. WCAG 2.0 requires that the color contrast ratio of the link to the surrounding text be at least 3:1. Now we'll address links. Links make it easy to access another place in the document or an address on the internet, and there are a few things to consider when making documents accessible. Sighted people can usually distinguish links by looking at them. They're usually underlined and a different color than the surrounding text. While web addresses or URLs shown in this slide are relatively easy to interpret, not all URLs are so understandable. Including more meaningful text, link purpose, just before the link is better for everyone, but especially screen reader users. The best way to include links in your documents is to make meaningful text a link. How do you create a text link in PowerPoint? Creating a link out of text is relatively easy. Highlight the text you want to be a link, right-click, and select Link, then Insert Link. A dialog box will appear. Type or paste your link in the web address field at the bottom of the dialog box and press OK. Your link will now be an active text link. Making URLs active is easy in PowerPoint. Simply press space or enter after your properly formatted URL and it will become an active link. We've talked about what must be fixed in PowerPoint. Let's now talk about what should be fixed in PowerPoint. These items can be fixed in a PDF file, but are much easier to fix in a PowerPoint file, or in case the PowerPoint is updated regularly. Let's begin with data tables. Data tables can be made accessible to blind people, but there are a few things that need to be done in the PowerPoint file. Note that it will need to be tweaked in the PDF file once converted. Working with tables in PowerPoint, there are a few things you must do to make sure the table will be ready to be made accessible when converted to a PDF file. The following slides will go into detail about getting your PowerPoint tables ready. Note that if you use Draw Table option on your table, it may not convert to an accessible table in PDF, so avoid using that option. Let's talk about inserting tables in PowerPoint slides. On the Insert tab, select Table, and either use the grid to create your table or use the Insert Table option, and type or choose the number of rows and columns your table needs. You can also insert a table directly from the slide for most layouts by selecting the table icon in the middle of the layout placeholder. To insert a table using the grid, drag your mouse over the grid to select the number of rows and columns you need for your table. When you let go, your table will be created. To insert a table in a PowerPoint slide using the Insert Table method, select Insert Table. A new dialog box will appear where you can either type the number of rows and columns or use the selector arrows to select the number of rows and columns. Then press OK. Remember that tables must have headers to be accessible. Adding column headers in PowerPoint is a little different than in Word. Highlight your table. Select the Design tab of the table group that appears. Make sure that Header Row is selected in the Table Style options. This will ensure that the first row is designated column headers. Header row is usually selected by default, but always make sure it is selected anyway. There's no way or need to repeat header rows over pages or prevent cells from breaking over pages because tables cannot span pages in PowerPoint like they can in Word. Let's switch now to talking about PowerPoint layouts and the best way to add new content to a layout. Many people, when working with PowerPoint, add text boxes to existing layouts outside the slide master. When they do that, the new content is not available to assistive technology and may not convert properly when converting the PowerPoint to a PDF file. Changing the look and feel of a PowerPoint slide is a little different than using styles with Word. You can use a predefined template, but you might want to use different colors or include more placeholders. In this case, you will need to use the Slide Master. Select the View tab, then select Slide Master. Highlight the text you want to change and right-click. A context or shortcut menu will appear. Use this to make changes to the elements. This will change for all slides for that layout. You may need to repeat this process for different layouts being used in the presentation. If you want to create a completely new layout, open the Slide Master, then select Insert Layout. A new slide will appear that you can add content to. Placeholders are containers for text, tables, or images. You can choose from a variety of placeholders. You can also choose to show footers or not. Click where you want the placeholder positioned and expand it by using one of the many resize circles. You can also edit the text styles if you wish. Now you'll have a new layout to use when you create your slide for that theme. Let's now focus on images. Images make PowerPoint presentations more interesting. Some images are used to convey information, like the pie chart on the right side of this slide, and others are just decorations, like the border image in the upper left-hand corner. Let's talk more about examples of image types. The white column and image of children on this slide are examples of images that are decorative. It won't matter if a blind person using a screen reader knows that they are there or not. They convey no information and are purely decorative. Important images, on the other hand, are images that present information. A blind person using a screen reader needs to know what is in that image in order to have the same information that a sighted person has. Let's talk more about examples of more important images. This image is both a linked image and has text. It will need to be described to a blind user using a screen reader. Images of text, except for logos, is discouraged when text can be used instead. However, in the case of organizational charts, such as the image on this slide, it might be necessary to use an image of text. In that case, the image must be described in full, including relationships. On the OJJDP website, an organizational chart is used, and it is described in detail on the same page. This combination line graph and vertical bar chart will need detailed alt text describing all the data points. Blind people can't see images, so if it has text, it should be described to a blind person using a screen reader. How do you describe images? One way is by giving image alt text. Alt text is text that can be read by assistive technology and is usually invisible to the sighted. While adding alt text is easy, writing it can be very difficult. Unless the image is very simple, the alt text should be written by the subject matter expert. A linked image needs brief alt text, explaining where the image will take you if you click on it. If there is other text on the image, include that as well if it seems important. In this image that links to the National Missing Children's Day commemoration website, that must be included in the alt text. Bringing our missing children home safely can also be added, but it is not as important as where the image link will lead. Note that the word link should not be used because the screen reader will announce it as a link. Organizational and flowcharts need not only the text of the chart included in the alt text, but also the relationships. For instance, this organizational chart describes who reports to whom, as well as including all the text from the chart. It is best if the text is on the page itself, but there's no limit to the characters in alt text in a PDF file. Charts and graphs need extensive alt text, including all data points. It is best if a subject matter expert writes the alt text. Images with text, such as logos, can be given alt text of whatever text is in the image. Note that if a logo is repeated on every page, it only needs to be described once in the document. Now that you know how to write alt text, let's go over how to add it to images in your PowerPoint file. It is easy to add alt text to images in PowerPoint if you know where to find the alt text form. First, right-click on the image and choose Format Picture. If you have a newer version of PowerPoint, you could select Edit Alt Text instead. Select the Layout and Properties icon in the Format Picture pane, expand the alt text drop-down, and type the alt text in the description field. Don't use the title field unless the file will never become a PDF file, because the title field does not convert to alt text when the file is converted to a PDF file. Microsoft Office has a very comprehensive video on its website discussing alt text. Select the link in the video or access the link beneath this video by selecting Show More. Let's now discuss document properties. While not quite as important as most accessibility features, the document properties provide information about the document and helps users of assistive technology such as screen readers identify and find documents. This can be filled out in the PDF file, and there are things you will need to do in the PDF file once converted, but it's a good idea to get a start in the source file. Select File on the ribbon. The Info view will appear. On the Info tab, select Properties, then Advanced Properties. A dialog box will appear. The title should match the title of the title slide. The subject should briefly describe what the document is about. The author of the document should not be a person's name, but the organization or government, department, or agency the document is for. For instance, OJJDP and not John Doe. The keywords are words that someone might use when searching for information your document might provide. If at all possible, the creator of the document should provide the subject and keywords. We've discussed what must and should be fixed in your PowerPoint file, but there are some accessibility features that cannot be fixed in source files, such as some table properties and document language, if not the default language of the user's computer. These will need to be fixed in the PDF file and is not within the scope of this tutorial, but will be addressed in a separate tutorial. Finally, here are some resources to provide more information. Please take a few minutes to review the disclaimer here. Thank you for reviewing today's training.